Okay, so we have our card slots and we have our two shaped side panels that go on either side. Make sure you get these the right way around. So it's actually, the ideal thing is to lay it out like that. And you'll notice that the card slots are longer. That's perfectly as they should be. Mine's actually even longer still because I didn't cut it down to 16 1/4. I think I left it a little bit longer because that's as much fabric as I had. So it doesn't matter. It's absolutely fine. So if you lay it like this so that you can see the shape of the bag, you know that you've got these on the right sides. So I'm going to take one of my side panels and lay it right sides together with my card slots, matching up the top straight edge. Don't worry about the bottom. The bottom is irrelevant at this point. I'm just going to pop that out of the way, and I'm going to stitch down to secure that in place using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you must make sure that you absolutely adhere to the seam allowance here. So I'm going to open that up. Let me just grab my pressing mat, sorry. Open that up with the seam allowance staying out towards the side of the panel. I'm just going to finger press, and then I'm going to grab my iron. And press that side out. Before I go any further, I'm going to pop the other side on because I like to top stitch both of them at the same time. I just think it helps me get things right. So there again, I'm orientating it the right way, bringing it over so it's right sides together. I'm matching the top straight edge. I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you are going through quite a few layers because you're going through the card slots, but the stitching is way outside of where the interfacing is. So you actually shouldn't have, it's thicker, but you shouldn't have an insurmountable amount of fabric to go through. And you can, if you choose not to, you could choose not to interface your card slots. Not that it will make any difference to this seam because there is no interfacing in those card slots. But sometimes, certainly some of the Aldi fat quarters already have quite a lot of dressing in them, so you perhaps don't need any interfacing. Always keep your interfacing out of the seam allowance when you're doing card slots because it just adds layers and layers and layers to the thickness. And if you've got an entry-level machine, you may struggle with lots and lots of layers. So there you go. You can see I've folded both of those side panels out. The seam allowance is out towards the side, and now I'm going to top stitch on the side panel right the way down from the top to the bottom. And I'm top stitching at 1/8 inch from the folded seam that we've just pressed. And the same on the other side. And there we have the back part of our lining. Now you can see that that's still too long, and that's exactly how I would expect it to be. I just have what I need to sort that out. my cutting mat. I'm going to have to do it this way around, I can't go back to front. And my rotary cutter. I am just going to trim off the excess. So now that sits perfectly. And why do we make it longer? Because there's always going to be slight discrepancies. I've got a bit of fluff in there. Slight discrepancies with how accurately you fold, how thick your fabric is, the turn of cloth on these. So it's a lot easier to just have a little bit of extra excess fabric and trim it off than it is to have you perhaps do slightly less crisp folds and then realise that you actually don't have enough in your card slots to make the panel work. So it's easier to lose 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch than it is to try to lose the entire panel. So there we go. So that's our back panel completed with our card slots in place.